Well, good morning. This is the first in what hopefully will become a series of monologues on the topic of scatter architecture. I'm in my new studio. It's a mixture of, well, let's just say new and new. So it's a little bit of automobile. Gives me my little captive time while driving along to work, where I tend to organize my thoughts, and of course my trusty little iPhone 4. No Siri command happening here, just a trusty little traditional, if you could call it traditional, iPhone 4, and a nifty little direct from Hong Kong visor mount, which puts the iPhone nicely up out of the way. Camera's in a nice spot, as you can tell, and hopefully the audio is pretty good, and we'll find out. But we're not here to talk about my setup. Want to basically get some of the thoughts out of my head, and in a form that we can start doing something with them regarding scatter architecture. And let's talk about why not to scatter. And maybe when we sort of set the stage with the things that aren't scatter, we can then start looking at the positives. And there's a lot of reasons to go with a single vendor, to go with a single architecture, single suppliers. It's sort of like the suite. If we sort of go back to, and I'll use the desktop software paradigm or analogy, where when we first started off, we would buy a spreadsheet from Lotus, and we had WordPerfect. Remember the old function key menus, and you'd have the template taped to your monitor to figure out how to do anything, because we hadn't quite figured out on-screen menus at that stage. And we'd buy database software separately, and then the suite came along, and the suite provided a unified style of user interface, common applications that naturally worked between the applications. Copy and pasting was a wonderful thing when that started working, and there's a consistency that could really only be provided by a single vendor. Standards are a wonderful thing, but in the early days of new technology, products tend to get pre-released, or sort of come ahead of standards, and standards quite often tend to follow behind after the need for the standards is well understood, and everyone comes on board with them. So when we look to an enterprise, if we could buy everything from a single vendor, pre-integrated, pre-tested, training that covers all of the products, and all of the functionality sets. So it's basically a unified suite, and the economies of scale can be taken into account. We're not trying to be the super IT shop for our organization. We could look at being the IT shop that leverages the specific nuances of a platform and the value add that we look to extract from it. So firewalls that work all the way with management suites, applications that all talk to each other, buying things already integrated into a portal instead of having to buy a portal and doing an integration project to pull all the pieces together. No need for single sign-on, because there is only one sign-on. Everything, that whole single sign-on paradigm, is integrated by the vendor. It's basically the ideal world in some ways, because it lets us focus on satisfying the business needs from a single platform. Let me buy one IT stack from one supplier, one throat to choke, so to speak of, and everything is all provided by it. So that, when you sort of think of it, is a wonderful world. The wonderful world of IT from a single supplier. And on that note, I'm going to cut this video short, and I'm going to comebacks, I'm sort of thinking of using the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities,